Welcome to Sector Report. I'm David Beatson. This week, winter's almost over, but will spring be any better? The young banker who rocked Australia's best young farmers and the fresh new face at Federated Farmers fronting up at the board table.
If a line needs to be drawn in the sand, I'm not afraid to draw it.
Well, that's Katie Milne, the latest addition to the board of Federated Farmers, and there's no truth in the rumour that Mount Tongariro blew its top just to mark her appointment as the Federation's adverse events spokesperson. It was pure coincidence, though she is a member of her local volunteer fire brigade. Katie Milne is at the top table, selected on the strength of her performance as Provincial President of Federated Farmers West Coast, one of the most rugged parts of rural New Zealand. Sector Report correspondent Neil Parker travelled to Rotomanu to meet Katie Milne on her home turf.
Are you ambitious by nature?
Well, I don't know that I am, but it probably appears that I am. Yeah, I think I see a need or something that intrigues me or makes me feel a bit indignant or something, and I'll just decide that's not fair or that's not right, or I'd like to get involved with that and do what it takes to get there and get involved. I've always felt that you should try and control your own destiny. Luck has a little bit to do with it, but you've got to make luck, etc., and you know, get out there and do stuff.
Are you driven?
I guess I am, yeah. Must be.
Katie Milne hates TB.
It's a very emotional and exhausting disease for a farmer who gets it in their herd. To see, you know, animals that you've worked hard to build up a herd, you know, then you know them fairly well in most cases. See them torn away to get their heads off because they've got this flaming disease is very, very, very hard on families, hard on farming, hard on farmers. You know, it's soul destroying and we need to get rid of it.
TB has dogged her whole life.
It's been with me right from a young age. Had to get TB tested as a child because those, you know, the pet cat was living with me in the house and in the bed, and waiting 3 days for that result with lumps on your arm from the test with the other kids at school was a bit, you know, you certainly had your jersey sleeves down for those 3 days.
The memories remain to this day.
I felt really awful. It was embarrassing, felt dirty, yeah, and upset.
Of the 60-odd farms currently infected by TB in New Zealand, the West Coast has an unenviable claim to 2/3 of them. And the latest Federated Farmers board member is on a mission to wipe the disease right out of the territory.
It is a seriously big ask because, you know, the size of the bush on the West Coast is massive. But it's a goal worth having a crack at. Yeah, it's Katie Milne here returning your call.
Everyone wants to talk to Katie. One of her new roles is adverse events spokesperson.
If there was a lot of ash about, remember animals are still, they need water, you know, to be clean and so
as well as these and her farming duties, Katie is on the Constitutional Review Committee for Westland Milk and is also a volunteer fireman in her spare time.
Oh, I guess I'm ADD or something. A little bit hyper perhaps. There's too much to do in this country. You've got to get out and do it. I think that's, you know, it's just too big a playground out there, so.
Katie and her partner Ian Whitmore milk 200 jerseys on 125 acres near the shores of Lake Brunner. Both families have farmed on the West Coast for generations.
We used to get a couple of lollipops each and sent up to the top of a ridge that cut over bush, so there was a couple of bulldozer tracks up the ridge, and me and my brothers would get sent up one of these tracks each with a couple of lollipops, and then the 130 ewes or so, or how many mum and dad had, would be driven up behind us.
So Katie learnt early on that bribery gets you everywhere.
Yeah, incentive. The carrot always works better than the stick. Yep, knew that from an early age.
Being a girl has never stopped Katie.
I've never been treated like, oh, there's that bloody upstart girl, or, you know, what's that Sheila doing here? I've always just been taken on my merits, and that's really awesome. Maybe it's the way I come across too, that people don't want to try any of that sort of girly stuff on you, that, you know, that, oh yeah, fob you off. if a line needs to be drawn in the sand, I'm not afraid to draw it.
Tell me about Ian.
No, he's a good bloke, good Kiwi, quintessential bloke. He's been the machinery guy. You know, he does have heavy metal syndrome, which has been a bit of an issue at times, but we've complemented each other really well on the farm. Yeah, no, we've made a really good team.
What gets you up in the morning?
Sunlight. Just get out there and you know, make the most of each day, whatever it is, whether it's a day on the farm or a day, you know, soon to be in Wellington or in town with councils or whatever's going on. Just, you know, just got to get up and do it.
What bugs you the most?
Housework is so frustrating. Something that just takes up time. It steals time from you. I tell you what bugs me is actually time. You know, there's so many things that I want to do and I'm tied up doing that I feel like I'm not going to have enough time to do everything I want to do. And I suppose also that making the most of the time you've got, you know, it's on all those levels about getting balance. Someone once said to me, you know, if you want something done, you give it to a busy person. And I get a lot of phone calls and knocks on the doors, you know, to pick things up and do it. And yeah, sometimes you do have to say no, but that time thing is a constraint that, yeah, is frustrating.
But what really bugs Katie is ignorance.
Sometimes some of the stuff that comes through, when you read it and look at it, what they want to put through, you think, that just makes no sense, it won't work. And I guess not coming from a farming background, people who write rules and plans and stuff, they don't have any idea what the implications are. So sometimes you've got to, you know, make sure that's pointed out to them quite bluntly so they, you know, can understand and then perhaps change the direction a little bit. Yeah, well, that's a chamois from the Waterawa.
Like her mother and father before her, Katie is a hunter. Once she sets her sights on a target, she doesn't often miss. What are the biggest challenges facing farming today?
Probably the biggest one, and we're trying to work through it, is perception, you know, with the general public and so on. And that flows through into so many areas, like the freshwater policies and so on. You know, at the moment, we've got to find our way through there and make sure that we can still, you know, get enough water to irrigate and keep prospering, keep farming growing. That grassroots thing that everyone used to go and stay on the farm and knew what went on has sort of changed. Urbanisation has changed what people think or understand about farming. So that's a big, difficult barrier to get through. I've watched mining take a hiding, forestry's taken a hiding, and, you know, certainly farming's the next target that people have decided that, you know, should be done how we want and not how farmers want.
So what is the ultimate goal?
That is a hard question because I'm sort of one of these people that I see where the journey takes me. I get into something and enjoy it and just follow a path and see where it leads. So I haven't really got any ultimate goals or any vision of where I'm going to end up. While something's still keeping me excited and interested, I'll follow it through, and if it gets dull and boring, I'll go off and do something else.
Neil Parker reporting from Rotomaru. Next, the young Kiwi banker who took on Australia's best young farmers and won. Stay with Sector. There can't be many young bankers who can set up a water trough, demonstrate quad bike safety, assemble and smoke a beehive, strain a fence wire, plant 2 poplar posts, stack 3 bales of hay with a front end loader, install a battery in a ute, bag potatoes, wind up a smart fence, taste wine and raise a flag, all in under 40 minutes. Well, that performance helped our next guest win 2nd place at the recent New Zealand Young Farmer of the Year contest. Then 3 weeks later, he crossed the Tasman and wiped the floor with 6 of the best in Australia to take out the coveted title of Australasia's Rural Youth Ambassador. Meet this rural manager at the National Bank in Hamilton, Tim van der Molen. Well, welcome, Tim.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, how did you even get into the race in the first place?
Well,
you're a Kiwi.
That's right. Here in New Zealand, we have the Rural Young Achiever Award held each year, administered by the RAS, the Royal Ag Society. And that competition's been going for some time. In the last 5 years, New Zealand's been invited to compete in the Australian competition as well. So we've turned it into an Australasian title for the Rural Ambassador. So that's a bit of the history behind it.
And you've been pretty active in the development of the young farmers.
Yes, yeah, I've been involved with the New Zealand Young Farmers organisation for some time now. So it was a natural progression for me to step up to the plate and have a crack at the competition myself.
Okay, now, what were you expected to do?
Well, when we got over there, we had an interview with a panel of judges asking us a range of questions about the agriculture industry, our involvement in it, and also our community involvement back in our home locations. So we had that during the day, and then in the evening we had an on-stage interview with a talk show host over there who asked us again some similar questions, and just to test our public speaking ability and operating under pressure on stage, I guess. So.
You mean you didn't have a go at your favourite things like ag sport, as they put it, at all? This was all brain work.
It was, yes. So it was quite different to the Young Farmer contest in that regard.
And you were also playing by Aussie rules.
Yes, so it has been quite a challenging competition over the last few years because it has always had a bit of an Australian focus, given that New Zealand's been invited into that competition. So this was actually the first time a New Zealander has won the award, so I was delighted to be able to bring it home to New Zealand.
Yeah, okay. What happened? What went wrong?
I'm not too sure. I guess I went into it...
Aussie rules aren't meant to work.
No, that's right, that's right. So I'd put in a lot of work to try and get myself up to speed on the Australian agriculture industry, and working for ANZ National Bank is absolutely fantastic because they're based in Australia as well.
Right.
So I was able to touch base with some of my colleagues over there, and they got me up to speed on the topical issues Australia is facing.
Okay. What particular issues did they zero in on?
Live export was certainly...
What about, I'll come to that in a minute, but I mean, what about things like biosecurity and all the things that prevent New Zealand produce getting into the Australia?
Yes, that's right.
Did they ask you about that?
Yes, apples came up on the agenda there as well.
Oh, well.
So, but I must say the Australian apples don't taste nearly as good as ours.
Okay. Well, that's a good answer here. How did it go down there?
I didn't use that one in the interview.
What did you say?
Oh, hey, it's just about looking at working together as best we can as countries and respecting each other's differences as well. So. Okay,
let's come to this live animal trade issue, because that is a hot issue. It's a hot issue in Australia. It's also on the agenda here again. I see that the law is being reviewed at the moment, the Animal Welfare Act, and presumably we'll try and keep in harmony with what's going on in Australia. But what is happening over there?
They've been having a lot of difficulty in the northern part of Australia in terms of getting their cattle offshore into the Asian market there. And that's really crucial for them because they don't have any processing plants in that part of the country. So that's really their only source of income, is shipping those cattle out live. But it's important to actually manage that process in a strict manner, and that hasn't been happening. And I think that's been the problem there. Obviously, we've seen a lot of images in the media about what's been happening in the slaughter plants once they get offshore. And they really need to work on tightening up that process and improving the communication between the countries as well, because that's certainly been an issue for them up there.
Now, you're a rural manager with the National Bank, not an everyday farmer. What got you so interested in the business of farming?
Farming's been a passion of mine from a young age, David.
Is it a family thing?
Yeah, we've always had a family involvement there. So my parents aren't on farm themselves. They're both teachers, but we've grown up around farms, and I spent a few years dairy farming myself before coming on board with the bank. So it's really something that I have been passionate about, and I see myself involved in the agriculture industry for a long time, and I really want to make a difference where I can, and this is a great way to grow that involvement and look to make the next step.
Well, tell me, how do you rate yourself as a farmer?
Why
are you a banker?
Yeah, sure. Hey, farming is an incredibly challenging role. There's so much you have to know depending on the type of farming you're in. every day I'm talking with clients, and it blows me away at how much they know and the types of things they do. So I'd love to be nearly as good as any of them. You know, it's just a phenomenal thing to get involved with. But I do what I can, and I've been involved with the Young Farmer competition as well. And I love competing in that and testing my knowledge and really getting involved in the industry wherever I can.
Tell me, you've got this glorious title now. You're the Australasian Rural Youth Ambassador. What are you supposed to do? What's the job description?
So it's really about raising the profile within the industry for the show societies as well as rural youth in general. And our Young Farmers organisation plays a key part within that. So I'll be going along to key shows such as the Royal Show that's been held in Hamilton this year, and also the Royal Easter Show over in Sydney next year. So
they have invited you back?
Yes, they have. There don't seem to be any hard feelings at this stage. So.
At this stage. Right. You win it again next time and you'll be in trouble. Tell me, however, one of the other things that happened is that you actually got a $5,000 travel grant.
Yes.
Where are you going and what are you going to do with that?
Well, I haven't quite decided on that one yet,
come
David.
on.
So, the purpose of the travel grant is to give me the opportunity to go to a country of my choice to learn a little bit about how agriculture works in that country. So there's a lot of great places I'd like to go to. Canada's one of those.
I was going to say, what's your long, short list?
Yeah, Canada. Back to the UK. I've spent a bit of time over there already, so it'd be great to go back there. I'd also be quite interested in getting potentially up to China. So from a work perspective, we're working into Asia a lot at the moment, and there's a lot of opportunities coming out of there, so it'd be fantastic to be able to see that firsthand.
Well, you were second in the New Zealand Young Farmer contest this year.
That's right.
You coming back for another go next year?
Yes, I think I will. I'm a little bit too competitive to let it get the best of me, but also it's a fantastic way to meet great people and really test yourself and learn some great skills along the way. So I'll be back.
Tim, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, David.
Tim van der Molen, Australasian Rural Youth Ambassador. After the break, if you think you've seen some pretty wacky weather this winter, just wait till you hear what's coming in spring. New Zealand's known for variable weather. We're the 4 seasons in one day country, but this winter's been pretty wacky. A season of blue skies and warm days mixed with sudden cold spells and flash floods. Too dry for some sheep farmers, just right for some dairy farmers. A snow season that had ski field operators moaning at the slow start and smiling at the school holidays. Well, now winter is nearly over and the young weather forecaster's fancy turns to spring. Weather analyst Philip Duncan is here from Weather Watch and Country 99 TV News and Weather with the inside scoop. Well, Philip, lovely to have you back.
Thank you.
Come on, tell me, we've had the wackiest winter. What on earth's been going on?
Yeah, it was kind of strange. You know, in the first week of June, I was over in Vancouver, very first week of winter, and I was reading all these reports about that big snowstorm we had in the south. That was the one that brought that horrible wind chill to the west coast, and it killed a couple of hundred cows down there. And I remember thinking at the time, and I remember telling reporters at the time, that this is as cold as it gets in New Zealand. And how odd that now we are at the coldest, what is historically the coldest part of the year, and we're getting highs of 17s and 18s in the North Island especially. It's been very, very warm.
Yeah, I know.
So it's gone from one end to the other.
But it's been going all over the place, and at the same time you can get a high here and really low down south and vice versa.
Yes.
Deluges here and droughts there.
Exactly. It's been completely split into 2 sections really, or even 3. There's sort of been a top, middle and a bottom.
Yeah.
When winter started off, the reason why we had the big cold blast and the wind chills was because we were getting these very, very big highs. The same ones that we had last year, which also brought that big snowstorm, which was the same week a year ago where we had snow in Auckland and Wellington and Christchurch. Those same big highs were still running. Very big shaping sort of north to south, and they were stretched out around Tasmania and coupled with small lows off the Dunedin coastline that brought in those southerlies. And then when we went into the second part of winter, where we're at now, we've seen those highs really disappear, and instead our weather's been dominated by these very, very big lows in the Tasman and big highs out to the east. It's almost been like La Nina again, with a lot of nor'easters across the country.
I mean, has it been La Nina?
No, La Nina faded out around about March and
Because
April.
you were talking about that when we were talking last time we had a go on the weather.
Exactly. exactly. So it's gone, you know, it's been a very unusual season. But as I said at the start, as I said back in autumn, when you have a neutral season like we're getting it right now, not in El Nino, not in La Nina, everything can be thrown at us. And that's what we were saying back in autumn. You can get snowstorms, warm spells, droughts, floods, the whole lot can come at you when you don't have a dominating force in weather.
Okay, I mean, but we did seem to have an enormous amount of variability on the same day in different parts of the country even.
Yes, and that's because the systems they've been angled funny, they've been slow moving. That's been the biggest thing, probably I would say, about this winter. Everything's been slow. So the lows that come through are taking, I mean, just a couple of weeks ago we had that low that Weather Watch called the 8-day low, because it lingered for, you know, over a week. It's almost unheard of to have a low last that long, the same one right over us.
And you say it's coming at an odd angle.
It's coming at an odd angle, so, and because New Zealand, I wrote a column in the Herald a while ago that said, if you got rid of all the mountains in this country, our weather would be the same from top to bottom, and it would be boring as anything. You know, we would have really boring.
You have nothing to do.
I'd be able to predict the weather like you know, a year in advance. I'd be able to be like Ken Ring. The weather is very, very tricky. But we predicted back in March that there would be snowstorms in the first half of winter, which is unusual. They're normally quite often in the second half. So we knew that it was going to be a cold start because of those big highs. We also said that the first half of August was going to be very wet, and that by the second half of August we'd be getting into westerlies. All of those predictions have come true. So I think that as far as Weather Watch is concerned, we've been very accurate so far this year, but that doesn't mean, you know, we're going to be perfect for the rest of the year. The other ones, I think NIWA's been pretty much where they usually are. It's pretty 50-50. They got their summer forecast wrong, and then they called for dry weather recently, although, you know, they are, to be fair to them, NIWA do 3-month seasonal forecast. So yes, it's been a very wet past few weeks, but as Georgina Griffiths at NIWA said to me, look, you know, the next 2 months could be much drier. That will even it all out. Met Service, I don't pay attention to their forecasts.
Extreme weather warning, I seem to have heard a lot of it this winter, all of a sudden. You know, is this just the language changing or what?
I think you'll find that one of the things that's happened with Met Service over the last few years, since Weather Watch started, is they have really jumped on being a little bit more vocal about things, and so they are certainly making big efforts to be seen and heard far more than they used to, and we've noticed that in a number of areas, whether it's through social media, whether it's through them doing news releases, which they never used to do before. Now they're doing these news releases, so they're targeting what we're doing at Weather Watch. They're targeting what we're doing at Country 99 TV with our weather videos, and so, with our rural ones, and so there's a lot more noise coming out of the weather industry, whether it's from you know, Weather Watch, NIWA, Met Service. There's a bit more competition in the market. Everyone's trying to get, you know, a voice out there. But I think I actually, to be honest with you, I think we've actually had fewer warnings this year, and or certainly this winter. And I think the Met Service
must just be noticing.
Well, yeah, because we've had a lot of extreme weather, and it's been all over the place. You know, it hasn't just been the same areas getting it. We tend to switch off a bit when it's fjord and getting rain.
Let's look forward now. Everything seems to be flowering a bit earlier than usual.
Yes.
You've certainly heard from your fan club about that. We've had winter bloomers in February, and now we've got spring flowers all over the place, certainly here in Auckland anyway. So are we into early spring, and is it going to be warm? Is this going to be a good spring for farmers?
We're definitely in an early spring. 70% of the country is already experiencing spring weather. We've got, you know, in New Zealand, I always say this, we only actually have 2 months of winter, 2 months of summer, and the rest is autumn and spring. So we have these 4-month autumns and 4-month springs. Really, if we really look at it, there's no way you can justify that we're in the middle of winter, which, if you go by the meteorological and scientific argument, spring doesn't start until the equinox, which is another 4, 5, 6 weeks away. So therefore, we're still in the middle of winter, yet we've got 18, 19, 20 degree highs, we've got flowers coming up, we've got buds blooming, lambs out. Most other countries wouldn't call that smack bang middle of winter. So I think it's quite safe to say our winter's short, but this year is even shorter.
Are we out of the unstable weather though? I mean, are we, you know, still likely to be shocked by a few events between now and say all October?
Well, we've just lowered our risk from a high risk for snow to sea level to moderate risk. This time last year we were still at high. So we're seeing this year as being less likely to have that. But there's always a risk of snow in New Zealand. We've had snow events even in the middle of summer. So, I mean, they're very rare, but we do get them. It's our latitude that we're in. So there's definitely a moderate risk of still seeing a snowstorm, which is fairly high.
It's calving and lambing time. Can you give us a quick sort of region by region rundown on what farmers are likely to see this month?
I think that we're going to see over the next 4-6 weeks or so, I think we're going to see more westerlies coming in. They're already starting. This next low that's coming through over the next week or so, once that clears out, the wind flow is going to change to a westerly, and that means eastern areas that have been hammered by the rain, Canterbury, Otago, who only a month ago were suffering from very dry conditions. Hawke's Bay, Coromandel, Bay of Plenty, all of those eastern areas are going to see much drier weather with more westerlies. That also means slightly cooler weather in the west, slightly cloudier, and maybe more showers. And Southland might also see more of the wet stuff. They've been pretty dry and sheltered from a lot of that rain this winter.
I'm going to hold you to all that.
Yes, I know you will.
Philip, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Philip Duncan, weather analyst for Weather Watch and Country 99 TV News and Weather. And that's all from Sector Report for now. Remember, you can check out our program anytime online at country99tv.co.nz. Thanks for your company. I'm David Beatson. See you next time.